Welcome back to another episode of UbiBlog Replay, where we rifle through our archives and revisit beloved games from Ubisoft's history. Today we'll look at one of our very favorites, a true classic that remains timeless despite time being its central theme. Of course, we're talking about 2003's Prince of Persia: The Sands of Time, the game that paired deadly trap-filled exploration with insane acrobatics and some of the best crowd combat of its era. It gave us a superpower we never knew we needed, the ability to undo mistakes by rewinding time. But what made it truly special was the way we got to know its two heroes over the course of their journey through a cursed, monster-infested palace. As Ubisoft celebrates 30 years, let's take a closer look at the game that helped redefine adventure for years to come. Starring a brash young prince fixated on glory and conquest, Prince of Persia: The Sands of Time begins with its hero tricked into unleashing the titular apocalyptic sands. These transform the palace he's visiting into a dangerous ruin, turn nearly everyone in it into murderous sand zombies, and give him an excuse to wax poetic during his narration.
A prison. Guards and prisoners made equal by the sands of time.
That narration is a big part of what makes the game so unique. The entire adventure is framed as a story the prince tells to someone who remains unknown until the game's final act, meaning every death is really the result of a narrator who's prone to confusion. Like, really prone.
No, I made it through those traps. No, that didn't happen. May I start again?
This being the prince's story, we also get to hear a lot of his internal monologue, most of which relates to his tenuous alliance with a captive, bow-wielding princess named Farah.
But fight as bravely as you may, you cannot defeat this enemy.
At first, she has every reason to hate the prince, seeing as he's sacked her kingdom and all, but between their interactions and the prince's frequent habit of talking to himself, we get to see their relationship evolve from distrust to uneasy dependence, and eventually to love.
Why didn't you trust me?
We also get to watch the prince grow from an arrogant swashbuckler into someone more vulnerable and mature, shedding his bravado almost as often as he does pieces of his shirt. It's a classic approach to character building that isn't often seen in games, and the wittiness of the writing and acting is still sharp after more than a decade of advances in the way video game stories are told.
I didn't dream it. At least, I think I didn't.
But then, storytelling isn't all that keeps the adventure riveting. Prince of Persia: The Sands of Time was a revolution in 3D action, letting players run up walls, dash across other walls, and generally treat gravity as a polite suggestion while leaping between hazards. Being a world-class gymnast with superhero-like stamina, the prince can instantly switch from swinging on horizontal bars to clinging to broken columns, or using parallel walls as springboards to reach impossible heights. That insane agility is instrumental in getting through the numerous massive, ornate puzzles that frequently block your progress, which begs the question of how exactly anyone got around the palace before it became a disaster zone. Acrobatic skills can't always save you if you misjudge a leap or stumble into a pit, both of which can happen to the prince with alarming frequency. Lucky for the prince, you can instantly undo these moments of frustration by turning back the clock and watching him retrace his steps in slow motion. Provided your magic dagger has absorbed enough mystical sand to stay powered up, you can do this almost indefinitely, taking the sting out of trial and error experimentation and transforming every failure into fun. Everything about hitting rewind, from the booming sound effects to the sight of the prince running backwards, is satisfying on a deep level, meaning there's something oddly rewarding about falling onto a bed of spikes or botching the timing on a dodge roll. The prince's acrobatic nature and time-manipulating powers also come into play during the endless battles with sand zombies, which take a fresh approach in the way they pit you against multiple enemies. Before 2003, getting into a video game melee brawl was typically a matter of focusing on one enemy at a time, while the rest either waited to fight you or darted in periodically to stab you in the back. Prince of Persia: The Sands of Time lets you rapidly and seamlessly switch targets mid-combo, chaining together a ballet of slashes and kicks that ideally leaves everything around you a little off balance and keeps them from moving in for a quick attack of opportunity. This combat formula was later adapted and refined for the Assassin's Creed series, although those games never took the extra step of letting you vault over enemies for a quick kill, or use time manipulation powers to freeze enemies in their tracks or temporarily slow them all down. The Sands of Time was only the beginning of this prince's adventures, but as beginnings go, it was nothing short of monumental. The The combat exploration and time manipulation mechanics it pioneered influenced countless games in the years after its release, and while many important games are better as distant memories than as something you'd enjoy playing now, the charming characters and fantastic design keep the Sands of Time remarkably entertaining more than a decade later. It's a game for the ages, essential for anyone who wants to truly claim to be an expert on games, and should be played by absolutely everybody. We hope you've enjoyed this episode of UbiBlog Replay. For more on Ubisoft games old and new, be sure to keep your eye on UbiBlog.